What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke. Just got off the golf course, excited to bring you guys our value plays for the RSM Classic. Going to break down some of the salary savers, some of the leverage plays you can get to in that 7 and 6K range. That'll help you spend up for an extra stud or two, and of course, like I said, with the ownership side, get some much needed leverage to the field. So a lot to get into. Let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. For our value plays, we are going to focus on the players sub $8,000 on the Draftkings pricing. And the first player I want to highlight is going to be Will Gordon at $7,700. Coming into this week, he's really impressed me with his form over the swing season, and I think for the rest of the year, he's going to be somebody to keep an eye on, much like a Davis Riley, a Sahith Theegala last year. I think Will Gordon is solidifying himself as one of those top 4 to 5 rookies out of this year's class, and the main reason I feel comfortable saying that is the ball striking metric. So let's go ahead and bring those up here at $7,700. He's gaining over half a stroke per round off the tee, and this is over a 50 round sample size. So he doesn't quite have 50 measured rounds over the time frame we're looking at, but he's got pretty close to it at this point. But over half a stroke gained there, close to a third of a stroke gained per round with the approach play. In the putter, though he's right around a neutral, he's a pop player. I mean, we've seen him threaten first round leader, 3-4 times already this season. He's had 7-8 under par rounds where he's vaulted himself up the leaderboard. Unfortunately, he's also had some of those negative rounds, but those sort of players have the upside that we need to begin with, and a lot of players we can't really say that for. I mean, there's plenty of guys that are comfortable gaining, let's say, 1-2 strokes to the field for any given round, but something like 5-6 strokes is completely out of their range of outcomes. To this point of the season, Will Gordon has gained over 6 strokes in a single round 3 times already. So he's shown that pop ability. A similar player who had a similar type of pop ability was a Sam Burns. You know, before he became a household name, before he started winning golf tournaments, he would go out there, he'd threaten first round leader all the time. He was aggressive, always had the ball striking we were looking for, but the putting was a little bit more inconsistent. And the reason why he's a world-class player now is the ball striking has persisted, and he's taken himself from an above average putter to an elite level putter. And Will Gordon, if he wants to see that same sort of leap, is going to have to do the same kind of thing. So I think he's a high upside player worth taking. And I haven't even talked about the Sea Island connection, have I? I haven't seen a ton of people mentioning it, but he is a resident of Sea Island, somebody who plays both of these golf courses all the time between the Seaside and the Plantation course. And from the course fit perspective, I do worry about some of the accuracy off the tee, but he's one of the longer players in this field. So if he's going to be able to, lay up off the tee, maybe on the tighter holes, take a little bit less of an aggressive approach, I think that's going to pay dividends and keep him from some of those negative volatility rounds that I talked about that have been tanking him over his last few starts. But despite the volatility, he's posted a lot of solid finishes. If 43rd last week was okay, but a 3rd place the week before, 35th, 44th, just making a bunch of cuts, right? And you would think, with 43rd, a bunch of 30th, 40th place finishes there, you think he's like this consistent sort of plotter. You couldn't find more opposite of a player. This guy is just an absolute home run hitter. It's just trying to piece it together for 3 or even potentially 4 rounds around this track. So I've already bet him outright. He has that sort of upside to go out there and win this event. And if he's only going to be 8.9% owned, count me in. It's going to be a buy spot. Next up, we've got Scott Stallings. He's there at 6% ownership, $7,600. He's just a good course fit. He doesn't have a Sea Island connection, right? He doesn't have that going for him, but he's more of an accuracy guy off the tee. He can get it out there a long way. He definitely has distance, but we've seen him at a TPC Sawgrass. We've seen him at a lot of these short plotter type of golf courses take a lot more of a conservative approach, lay up off the tee. Kind of what I'm hoping a Will Gordon is willing to do this week, because his irons are electric, and we know the putter with Scott Stallings, much like a Will Gordon there, can be extremely streaky. So he's a gainer on Bermuda. You love to see that. But with the shots gained metrics, you can see gaining off the tee and gaining a bunch of strokes with the irons. So Will Gordon's strength is off the tee distance. We know that. But Scott Stallings can do it with pretty much every shot, every category when it comes to the wedges. If you're looking at 50 to 125, 125 to 150, he's going to be top 25 in every single wedge category. And you got to love that around a short track like Seaside or Plantation. So I like the course fit. Just needs to keep it in place. play off the tee. That's the one thing I do worry about with the Scott Stallings. But the recent form, though it hasn't been as outrageous as it was like 2 months ago, where he had multiple top 3 finishes, runner up there in the playoff event. But, 58th was pretty bad, but none of the shots gained metrics counted there. So we do have to keep that in mind. A few of these lackluster starts, like a 58th and 40th at a no-cut event, were not counted in those shots gained, but a 13th before that, we know the kind of run that Scott Stallings was on. And at $7,600, we're getting a price decrease because of those lackluster starts. I mean, if he would have gone out there, finished in the top 25 of those no-cut events, you'd be looking at maybe a $9,000 Scott Stallings. And as of right now, he's only 6% owned, so it looks like he's being relatively overlooked. And I think that he's legitimately a solid $1,500 cheaper than he would have been if it weren't for those 2 starts. Next up, we got another Sea Island boy there with Davis Thompson at $7,400. He's much like a Will Gordon, a resident of the island there, St. Simon's Island. Not the best putter on Bermuda. That's the one thing I have to worry about with the Davis. But boy, oh boy, are these ball striking numbers just ridiculous. I mean, kind of like a Will Gordon. This, Will Gordon, Davis Thompson, it's not just that they're Sea Island boys. These are top 5 rookies on tour. I mean, if not top 3, I think Will Gordon and Davis Thompson's ball striking ability is really what separates them from like a Taylor Montgomery. I mean, Montgomery's gaining a bunch of strokes with the putter, but I mean, at this point, I'm counting on them being elite level ball strikers. I mean, look at this. He's gaining over 3/4 of a stroke per round off the tee, over 1/3 of a stroke per round with the approach play. And sure, the putter's been right around a neutral, but kind of like a Will Gordon, he goes out there, he spikes for 3-4 strokes gained putting in an event, and then he'll go out there and lose those same 3 to 4 strokes putting. So, he's a high upside, risky play, but if there's any sort of course I'm going to take a chance on, a putter that's a little bit inconsistent, it's his home course. A course that he's used to playing all the time, should have a lot of familiarity with the greens, and he's only 8.2% owned. And I say only 8.2%, that is a lot higher than a lot of his peers in this range, but it's not outrageous. You can take him in 15, maybe 20% of your lineups and get all the leverage that you need. Next up, we got Ben Griffin, and boy, oh boy, another Sea Island boy. One that, a lot of people do know about at this point. He's done a lot of interviews talking about Sea Island. The connection has been around for quite some time, but he's lovely on Bermuda grass. And the ball striking numbers, once again, just outrageously good. And he has a smaller sample size than a Davis Thompson, than somebody like a Will Gordon, but he's gaining 3/4 of a stroke per round with the approach play. Similar to a Scott Stallings, the off the tee play is the weakness for Ben Griffin, but you're talking about a 7,000-yard golf course, whether it's the par 72 Plantation or the par 70 Seaside course. That's not an issue for Ben Griffin, right? If anything, that's going to go a little bit closer to neutral. He can lean into those wedges, which have been great for him in his small sample size. And, another right around a neutral putter, which if you can't tell, that's kind of where you're finding the upside plays, right? Guys that are solid with the ball striking, they can pop with that flat stick. And, I've already said it twice now, but a Sea Island kid that should know these greens down to a pat. Next up, we've got ourselves Sep Shanka. This is where we deviate from the whole Sea Island equation. Though he is, a Georgian, went to the University of Georgia there, only 4.5% owned because he started last week horribly. Shot a 79 around the Houston Open, which, usually the Houston Open is a bear, but this time around it played a lot easier than we're used to seeing, which a lot of that had to do with setup. They set up a lot of the really difficult holes that were typically par 5s, but they converted them to par 4s for the Houston Open. Rather than playing them at their true length of like 530, 540 yards, they shortened it up. They had it play closer to like 505, 510 yards, a lot more reasonable for these tour players, and you saw them take advantage of it. But good old Sep Shanka was not able to take advantage of that. So if you're looking for recent form, he's not going to be your guy. But what you got to like about Sep is that he plays a tight golf course well. Think of Honda Classic right there with PGA National. The same sort of golf course where it's all about your accuracy off the tee. If you miss wildly off the tee, you're going to be in a heap of trouble, typically a water hazard. Around the Seaside course, a lot of it is natural areas, fescue grass, marshes, that sort of thing. You can't miss around that track. Kind of like my home course. I played around a golf today. My course, if you miss offline about 5 yards off of the fairway, you're in usually just bushes. It's the Everglades out there. It's a course that's right next to the Everglades, and you're truly in, you know, that wild habitat when you miss the fairway at my course. So Sep Shanka, you know, if I was going to pick a golfer to play around my home course or a tight track like we have here, is always going to bubble to the top of that list, because it's not just at PGA National. We've seen him have success at plenty of tight tracks. Think about TPC Southwind, one of the hardest courses off the tee on the entire tour, because it has water on, I believe, 13 of 18 holes, and the most water balls of any golf tournament are at TPC Southwind, right? And he almost won there, right? Lost in a playoff to Will Zalatoris. There's a legitimate familiarity, or I should say maybe comfortability, of Sep Shanka. I'm going to keep calling him that because I'm trying to reverse jinx it this week at these sort of golf courses. So I love you, Sep. I'm going to play here. Played you at PGA National. You're only 4.5% owned, and hey, it's a Georgia Bulldog in his home state. What's not to like there? Not quite the home field advantage of a Will Gordon, Ben Griffin, or Davis Thompson, though. Let's get that right. He's not a resident of the island. But lastly, we've got Chesson Hadley, and, you know, I guess there's something, right? You're in your home state. I'm sure he's played at St. Simon's Island, but those other three guys are sleeping in their own bed, right? There's levels when it comes to those advantages. But lastly, we've got Chesson Hadley, who's the perfect course fit. You can see he's top 5 in course fit. Yeah, he's a 6K range golfer, loves Bermuda grass. The recent form is, you know, kind of been, at least over the last 16 rounds, it's been a little bit shaky. But if you take a look at his last 50, I mean, he's gaining half a stroke per round on approach. He's gaining a bunch of strokes with the putter. We know off the tee is much more of an accuracy over a distance guy, checking a lot of the boxes that we're looking for. And if you take a look at his course history, I was hoping it'd be a little bit stronger for somebody of his caliber, I mean, of his course fit, but he did miss the cut 2 of his last 5 years, did make the cut in 3 out of his 5 starts, so there's something there. But at top 25 there, 37th, 50th place, you would hope that he'd have better course history. So that's the one thing, you know, I have to say about Hadley, is the course history is just not there, but everything else is, right? Solid Bermuda putter, more of a plotter off the tee, and then the approach play in the recent form has been there. So I'll definitely be getting there with good old Chesson, and hopefully we get some finger snaps and some birdies made for him. All right, guys, that is all I've got for the value picks. We will be doing our DFS live stream. That'll be tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure to stop on by for that. We'll be touching on the weather, any of your live questions, some GPP strategy, cash plays, if that's your sort of thing with PGA DFS, anything you need to know for this week, we'll make sure to cover it for you. So looking forward to it. It's my favorite hour of the week. And of course, you know, there's not going to be a weather advantage this week. I do have to say that, right? Tee times are within 2 hours because of the 2-course setup. But all of those last second looks at ownership are really where the huge edge comes to PGA DFS, because you'll see players that are steamed throughout the week. Our ownership projections are just going to get more and more inaccurate as the week goes on. There's a lot of ownership spots, there's a lot of chalk that you need to navigate the day of the slate, and that's what we do on that live stream. So looking forward to it. Make sure to stop on by, hit the like button before you hop on out of here, and I'll catch you guys later for the stream.